Spotify doesn't really want to be competing with other music streaming platforms. They don't want to be an Apple Music. They don't want to be a Deezer or a Tidal. They want to be a YouTube. They want to be a Netflix. And what I mean by that is they're taking steps to make Spotify about much more than just music. And you can think back to, I believe it was a couple years ago now, where they first added podcasts to the platform. And then they added audiobooks to the platform. And also along the way, they added video podcasts to the point where there are several dozens, probably, YouTube creators who upload all their videos or a lot of their videos on Spotify as well as on YouTube. I want to show you a few things about this. And I've covered this in the past, like when I've covered when they added audiobooks and I covered when they added podcasts. And I also covered when they made a recent acquisition of a media company to license their movies and TV shows to add to Spotify. This is the most recent version of that, where Spotify secured 48-hour exclusivity for a new live movie by The Weeknd. So basically, The Weeknd filmed a live recording, and Spotify got exclusive access for the first 48 hours. So, they're really, and this even says this in this article here, that it could see Spotify competing with video platforms as YouTube, Amazon Prime, or even Netflix in the realm of long-form music-related content. I see them going not just to music-related content, but also just for all content. And that's not completely unfounded. One, all the little breadcrumbs of evidence they've had recently getting podcasters and a lot of those podcast people also uploading basically just YouTube videos to their Spotify page. It's been fairly obvious to most people what they've been trying to do. They don't want to just be a music platform, which honestly for their survival, I think is probably a good thing. Because Apple Music could just come and squash them at any moment. It's a miracle they haven't already, right? Apple doesn't have to profit off of music and Apple Music. They could make a loss because it's not their main business. Spotify can't do that because music is their business. So the more they diversify, the more they protect their business. There might be some negative repercussions for artists on the platform, but it also might be a good thing. Now, I want to give you another piece of evidence, and that's this great video that I'm going to link down below that I think you should check out. It's this channel, Colin and Samir. They're basically YouTube creators for YouTube creators. So if you're a YouTuber, you definitely already know about Colin and Samir. They interview a bunch of successful YouTubers and other content creators. And in this, they interviewed the CEO of Spotify. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched about half. And a lot of what I just said is basically confirmed in there, where they refer to the people who upload music on Spotify as essentially content creators. And they kind of lump everyone in. So if you're a podcast, you're a content creator. An audiobook, you're a content creator. If you're a music artist, you're a content creator, which that's exactly how it is on YouTube. So I have a feeling a lot of people are going to be upset about this. I don't think you necessarily should be, because on YouTube, it's the exact same way. If you upload your music, you're just another content creator on the platform. You're not special. You're not in this protected category as a musician. You're just a content creator. And so Spotify, as being a streaming service for music, it's a little weird to think of it like that. But I think when you phrase it like how it is similar to YouTube, it's fine. And most music artists actually quite love YouTube, even though YouTube has plenty of problems as well. Like, for example, the monetization requirements. It's not unusual for people to go multiple years on YouTube without making any money from any of the views, just because of their pretty high monetization requirements. It's much harder to get monetized on YouTube than it is to get monetized on Spotify. But despite that, artists typically say really good things about YouTube and YouTube Music. Spotify, it's not the case. Now, there's plenty of things to criticize Spotify on. I've done plenty of that on this channel. But I think in this case, it actually makes a lot of sense. Because if we have more people going to Spotify, and they're the biggest music streaming platform, and they're also kind of turning into a YouTube and a Netflix kind of platform, I have to imagine that actually gets more eyeballs on music because more people are spending time in their app. Might be wrong, but to me, it seems like it's probably an overall net positive. Now, the exception to that is if they continually use things like this as an excuse to pay less for content. Like, for example, with audiobooks, they were able to use a loophole to pay songwriters less. Not necessarily artists uploading music, but songwriters in the back end were, and I think still are, getting screwed by the bundling arrangement that Spotify used with their audiobooks. So there are definitely business reasons for this, but some of them are good for artists and some of them are bad for artists. Now, even just a quick Google search about this, if you Google Spotify wants to compete with YouTube, you're going to get a few articles and other just random things. And I recently just clicked on this Reddit post here where someone's like, why am I getting this video stuff in my music app? And this is apparently a video podcast that this person saw. And this person left a really interesting comment that I think is worth pointing out. Why do they continue to add non-music things to music streaming app? and this is a correct statement because they're not earning any money from you streaming music. Well, it's kind of a correct statement. You might not know this, but essentially, for just the music, Spotify gives 70% of all the money generated for music consumption to the actual artist and labels. They only take 30%. So, as much as people say that Spotify doesn't pay artists, they pay 70% of their royalties of their whole business to artists. So they do pay artists. They just happen to pay less per stream than several other players. They're actually kind of in the middle. They don't pay particularly good. They don't pay particularly bad. I mean, all streaming doesn't pay well, but in the streaming world, they're kind of just average. But the interesting thing, podcasts, they do not pay. And video, we don't know what the arrangement is either. But for podcast specific, podcasters don't get paid per view. Like on YouTube, if you're monetized, you get paid per view, per 1,000 views, that kind of thing when ads are running your videos. On Spotify and Apple too, if you have a podcast, you're not getting royalties on the listens or the views on your podcast. Now, recently, Spotify has announced a program for this. And if you do a quick search, I just searched for Spotify podcast monetization. This was also mentioned in this interview with Colin and Samir, where he didn't give any specifics on the exact rate and how much money you would make, but he was Daniel Ek, the CEO of Spotify, was talking about how they want to have a model that's more similar to a YouTube, where they have a profit share between the creator and Spotify, where if ads are run on the show or streaming, or rather subscription royalties are part of the equation, they can share the royalties with the creators to incentivize them to keep creating. Like, that's why YouTube dominates. It's not because it's the best video platform. It is, but it's not just because of that. A big part of it is because they have over time shown that they're consistently willing to give creators a fair shake, right? If you watch my video now, or any video on YouTube, they give 55% of the ad revenue to the creator, and they take 45%. So right off the bat, they're leaning more into giving the creator. It's only a 5% difference, but that alone incentivized like the entire YouTube creator economy. And it's why a lot of social media influencers, Instagrammers, TikTokers, whatever, almost always would rather be YouTubers if they could make a choice about it. And a lot of them do transition over to YouTube over time because the economics, the financials of YouTube just make more sense than the financials and economics of being an influencer in a social media platform in a lot of cases. But I looked up this article here, and this is kind of clarifies a little bit of it. They have certain requirements for it, but you can have subscriptions, so you can sell monthly access to your subscription and your podcast. And they also have a partner program, which is essentially that, where it's like monetizing your show on Spotify. And there's all these requirements for it down here. I don't know, this will change over time, but 12 episodes, 10,000 consumption hours in the last month, which is a lot. 10,000 hours of consumption in a month is a lot. And 2,000 people who have streamed in the last month. So very hard requirements right now, but over time, the assumption is it'll go down. The barriers will be kind of opened up, because if they want to be able to compete with something like YouTube, they're probably going to have to do that. Who knows, though? And there isn't any kind of angle I necessarily want you to take away from this. I'm not telling you to be like upset about this because Spotify is adding stuff to their platform that's not for music. I'm also not asking you to be excited about this because it might bring in more people and it might make it so that artists have multiple avenues to branch out. Like, you can imagine a world where an artist could not just have their music on Spotify, but they could also have their video content, and they could sell subscriptions. And so like all these creator tools can actually directly benefit the musicians as well, in addition to the possibility of higher traffic source or more eyeballs on their content. Artists can use a lot of these tools as well. So I'm hopeful, but I'm cautiously hopeful. So I really just want to make sure that everyone understands this evolution, because a lot of times when platforms change, there's an opportunity to capitalize on it. And if you're too late to that, you kind of just missed your boat. Like, think of all the people who have been saying that they wish they got on TikTok early. I mean, now it's, by the time this video goes live, it might already be banned, depending on what happens in the USA. But, a lot of people say they wish they get started earlier. Same with Instagram. People wish they get started earlier. YouTube, a lot of people kicking themselves for not getting started earlier. And if you don't understand the trends and where a platform's going, it's a lot harder to start early because you just don't even realize these changes are happening. So, yeah, let me know if you have any questions, thoughts, feedback, or whatever in the comments below. And smash that like button if you enjoyed the video. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.